Logical fallacies. Civilization's public enemy number one. Facts are independent creatures. They don't care who says them or what their credentials are. They don't care how many people mention them, if any. They remain either true or false, independent of every other factor. Logical fallacies are the tools of the weak-minded or of the corrupt who are attempting to sway the weak-minded from trusting or using such facts. Those who are fully skilled in critical thinking are rarely, if ever, affected by logical fallacies. But what is a logical fallacy? It is a method of presenting facts that is either dishonest or is a distraction from the accuracy of those facts. Logic refers to reason, good judgment, or making sense of things. Fallacy refers to a misleading notion, erroneous belief, or myth. It is a false belief, false reasoning, or false judgment. One of the most common logical fallacies involves an attack on the person rather than on the topic and the claims made about it. This is called an ad hominem logical fallacy. Ad hominem means to the man rather than to the facts. It remains a brute force distraction from the topic or its details. To the weak-minded, it may well be an effective deterrent to critical thinking and intelligence. But who would want you to remain unintelligent? Anyone who considers you to be the opposition. Anyone who wants to sell you something you don't need. And anyone who wants to cheat you. Those who use logical fallacies are frequently clever at weaving an entire story out of such fallacies. You must know what logical fallacies look like in order to defend against them. The ad hominem fallacy may look like, "You're an idiot! Your parents are from East Europe. How can we trust your reasoning, being from such a backward part of the world? You must be taking money from Big Oil. You sound like a conspiracy theorist lunatic." There are dozens of other types of logical fallacies: arguments to ignorance, appeals to authority, appeals to fear, appeals to pity, appeals to spite, wishful thinking, and many, many more. Logical fallacy examples. Some logical fallacies start with claims that are easily disprovable, like everyone knows. All it takes is one person who doesn't fit the claim to destroy such an absolute assertion. If you find even one person who doesn't agree, then the claim of everyone is immediately and obviously false. The phrase "everyone knows" is an argument to popularity. It doesn't have to be true, but even if it were true, it's still a logical fallacy. The fact that a certain number of people think something is true has no bearing on whether or not it is indeed true. All authorities once thought that the Earth was at the center of the universe. That delusion went on for over 1,000 years, and every one of those authorities were wrong. Everyone knows an incandescent light is an impossibility. All metals will either melt or vaporize at the temperatures required for incandescence. This is the type of resistance Thomas Edison received for his attempts at inventing an incandescent light in the late 19th century. There was an overwhelming consensus against the inventor. We can be thankful that Edison didn't listen to them. Everyone knows that Clovis was the earliest culture in the Americas. If you dig below the Clovis horizon, you risk ridicule, a loss of funding, or the loss of your career. And yet several maverick archaeologists refused to be stopped. They dug below the Clovis horizon and discovered pre-Clovis artifacts, utterly destroying the Clovis First dogma. Everyone knows Atlantis never existed. It was merely a myth invented by Plato to illustrate his philosophical viewpoint. Did this person interview Plato to confirm this hypothesis? I sincerely doubt it, since Plato died over 2,000 years ago. Their logical fallacy, though, does not prove Atlantis existed any more than it disproves it. This merely shows that their arguments against its existence are not well-founded. Atlantis was never real because there is no evidence that civilization existed that long ago. Yet in the mid-1990s, scientists found at Gobekli Tepe, Turkey, ruins that date to 9,500 BC, only 1 century after Plato's Atlantis supposedly sank. Their argument against Atlantis amounted to an argument to ignorance, logical fallacy. We're ignorant of any evidence, so it must not be true. Atlantis couldn't have existed in the Atlantic because there is no evidence of a large island that sank there. With such a unique event, how do we know what a large sunken island would look like? What about the underwater plateau underneath the Azores? What about the massive damage to the Africa-Eurasia tectonic boundary from Gibraltar to the Azores? What about the sudden bend in the tectonic boundary at the eastern edge of the Azores? Each of these could be symptoms of a major tectonic disturbance right where Plato's Atlantis was said to have stood. 97% of scientists agree that climate change is real, it's man-made, and it's dangerous. Facts don't care how many people agree. They are either true or false, independent of such numbers. Ironically, the term climate change used here is a misnomer. What they're really talking about is catastrophic man-made global warming. You see, global cooling is also climate change, but they never seem to talk about that. And they are implying that global cooling is good, yet they leave out the fact that we currently live in an ice age and that cooling in the past has led to famines and societal collapses. Don't believe that we live in an ice age? Then watch my video on the Pleistocene. Anyone who disagrees is a climate change denying conspiracy theorist who belongs in jail. What a loaded claim that is. It's full of logical fallacies, including appeals to emotion, ad hominem, and appeal to spite. The term conspiracy theorist is also quite problematic. It is used as a term of ridicule. But what is it exactly? These days, many Westerners treat the word conspiracy as if it meant fantasy, and conspiracy theories are only believed by nutjobs. Ironically, people who ask probing questions are also called conspiracy theorists. Asking questions is not a theory, and those questions many times don't involve conspiracies. Yet the accusation is made despite its non sequitur nature. People who raise uncomfortable facts are also shackled with that label, but when did facts become theories? And who would insist that conspiracies be treated as fantasy? Wouldn't the conspirators themselves be thrilled to have people so trained to react that way to the mere mention of the word? Ironically, conspiracies are dirt ordinary. There are at least 489 new conspiracies starting every second on average, and that's based only on the known and documented conspiracies. So don't be weak-minded. Learn critical thinking skills.